welcome to our weekly astrology. For those of you who are new, this is where we break down what's happening in the energy for the week. For those of you who have been here before, you know what we're about to do. The first thing I do is check my sound, which I think is pretty good. And the next thing we do is I grab the chart and we start looking at the transits for this upcoming week. This week's a big week in the astrology because it is eclipse season. And not only that, but we have the solar eclipse happening on Monday. So that is a very, very big part of the energy for this week. And I'm excited to share what we can expect on this one. It's a really big one, okay? It's a really big one. Solar eclipses are usually more of an indication of what is coming into being, what we're starting, what we're about to do, and what areas of life we're about to forge ahead on. And total eclipses are stronger. So we have a solar eclipse. It is a total solar eclipse. And for anyone from Texas East in the US, we are in the path of, I shouldn't say we because that doesn't include me, but from Texas, up to Maine, basically the path of totality is where this eclipse will be the most visible. And that is where it is said to be the strongest. The effects are said to be strongest. Now, don't get all scared if you're in that area. I definitely don't want to make people scared, although eclipses deserve respect. And one thing I will say about this that astrologers debate on is that this eclipse, I would not recommend on Monday doing any really profound manifesting rituals or like spell work or anything that's because what happens when we do, I'm not talking about just visualizing your regular visualization or your regular journaling or whatever you regularly do. I'm talking about a lot of people will when a new moon or a full moon is happening, they will intentionally take time aside with that celestial event to harness the energy to have a stronger manifestation. That's what you don't want to do during eclipses because eclipses are unpredictable. And so if you are doing that, you're going to channel that unpredictable energy into whatever it is you're creating. And that's just not something that is advised. So for people who are I see a lot of astrologers out there being calling this kind of thing doom and gloom or saying it's bad. It's not really bad to be real about what's happening in the energy. And this is the difference between an actual astrologer and someone who follows astrology and thinks they know astrology, is that whenever there's a new or a full moon or an eclipse, we don't just look at the sign it's in and say it's about that. So that's how you know. That's one way you can tell if someone's truly an astrologer is if there's I've seen this before. I've seen people who don't know shit about astrology be like, it's a new moon in Libra, so it's all about partnership. It's not like that because we have a new moon in Libra every year during Libra season, and every year we don't have new beginnings in our partnerships. It's not that simple. We have to look at the ruler of the eclipse. So this eclipse we're talking about on Monday, the ruler is Mars. Mars rules Aries. So we look at what's happening to Mars during the time and that theme gets infused into our next 6 months. So I'll talk a little more about this when we get to Monday, but just an FYI for everyone, you can be real about the energy and not be, it doesn't mean you're bad. An astrologer isn't bad just because they talk about bad things. We really can't do astrology justice without mentioning some of the negative things that can happen. So that being said, let's talk about this week. I'm going to pull the chart up. Today, I wanted to do something different. So instead of talking about the sign by sign breakdown of the week, what I'm going to do is talk about a day-by-day breakdown, starting with today, Saturday, April 6th, going through Friday, the 12th. So I will be going through every day of the week and what we are experiencing energetically. Keep in mind, not all energetic things are going to hit you the same way based on your chart. And if you want more of a sign by sign breakdown, I did that in the solar eclipse and Aries video. So if you've already watched it, now would be a good time to watch it again to remember what's happening because it's current. And if you are watching this for the week, maybe you haven't seen it, it's a great way to go more in depth on the snapshot of the energies that are happening for the week. So that being said, also just FYI, you can book a private reading with me. There is a link in the description if you want to look at how the energy is hitting you or just get to know yourself a little bit better through the lens of astrology. So let's get into our weekly forecast. So we're starting off with right now. What you're seeing is the chart of the moment. And I made some notes here. So this morning at like 3 something a.m., we had the moon conjunct Saturn, which means we could have all kind of woke up with more of an awareness of obligation, more of an awareness of what we have to do, more of a feeling of like I have to set aside how I feel on this one and just go straight to what matters. And because Saturn's in Pisces, maybe what matters for the collective, what matters for a dream or an inspiration. So this could be a morning where it's like Saturday, not so touchy-feely, a little bit more focused on the long-term goal, maybe what you have to set aside to be ready for the long-term goal. And because Mars and Saturn are together, this theme's going to come up over and over this week. So let's just talk about the Mars-Saturn conjunction. This will be exact on the 10th, which is going to be Wednesday, and it is infused into the eclipse on Monday, which means we're going to feel it on some level for the next 6 months. So when Mars and Saturn are together, the signification here is like we want to go, but we have to stop. We want to go fast, but we have to go slow. Slow and steady wins the race. There's also a feeling with Mars and Saturn of being unbreakable, becoming unbreakable. So it's like, yeah, becoming a force to be reckoned with. Oftentimes Mars-Saturn people, they don't go down easy. They don't go down easy. And sometimes they will have more things, people with this natally will have more things in their life that you would think could take a person down, but a Mars-Saturn person never goes down. They're just strong. They have this fortitude. And so what this means for us is that this week we might have to have a little more fortitude. This week, some of our long-term goals might take longer than we thought, or we may find that because the conjunction on Wednesday, it begins a new cycle. Anytime 2 planets meet up, that's a cycle in astrology, that we start with the conjunction, there's a beginning of something, and then there's a square, there's a trine. So in that 2-year period, roughly, where of Saturn Mars, we'll have the new beginning, we'll have the first major challenge, we'll have the boss battle, and we'll have the last sort of challenge that now we know how to handle. That's kind of how the cycle goes in a nutshell. I'm generalizing and I'm summarizing here. So this Mars-Saturn cycle for all of us is going to be in Pisces, which means it's a little bit more, we might get more in life in the next 2 years by going with the flow instead of trying to force things. It's like when I think of Saturn in Pisces, I think of a building that is built on the water. And I think of how water erodes that wood over time and how people who live near the water like that, they have to spend a lot more to like keep up their houses because the water will just erode everything and it rusts things and things wear down. Okay, so we may find that during this 2-year cycle and even during this week, we get a lot further in life when we're just being like that water. You ever met someone who complains so much that people just do whatever the fuck they want? like they're really nice, but they're always complaining and, oh, this thing. And people just get sick of it. So they just go do the thing the person is complaining about because they're tired of hearing about it over and over and over. I know some people like that. I'm sure you do too. This is partly kind of that energy. Now, Mars-Saturn is a lot more fierce than this, but we may find this week that we're dealing with things like this, things where it's easier to just follow the stupid rules. It's easier to just do it the way you're supposed to do it. It's like you submit government paperwork and they give it back to you. You're not forcing them. They won't, there's like no way around it. You have to do the freaking paperwork the way they want you to do it. This is kind of another metaphor for Mars and Saturn together, is like you have to do it the right way. You have to do it the responsible way. You have to do the accurate way. You cannot cut corners. And so this week we may find that with the things we want to accomplish, slow and steady is the way to do it. We may also find that we're connected to the dream, because Pisces is like inspiration. And so Saturn being in Pisces is also very much like, it kind of reminds me of, I don't want to say monk-like, because it's not quite that, but this spiritual discipline, right? Discipline that is for the purpose of a greater cause, something greater than yourself, the collective. Spiritual lessons, wanting to receive those spiritual lessons and doing some work so you can receive those spiritual lessons. But there's a feeling to me with Saturn and Pisces that we're kind of on our own a bit, because one of the other significations of Saturn and Pisces are authorities are somehow no longer able to continue their responsibilities. They are removed from office. They are, they get sick. For some reason, they disappear, they dissolve into that Pisces abyss. Now, this could be because they can't do it, right? Sometimes the authority can no longer do the thing. And with Mars here, that there can be force involved with that. So I think of like someone getting impeached or something like that, where there's a forceful removal of an authority, and now there's a missing place where they were, and we kind of have to do things ourselves a little bit. When Saturn's in Pisces, we can't really rely on the authorities, the word I'm going to use in this one because I don't want to get canceled. But we can't rely on these authorities and these structures to provide for us the way they have in the past. We have to kind of step up and create our own structures, create our own systems, and sometimes we're on our own a little bit. Now, sometimes that's like a natural part of development. I just thought of like when you're a kid and you just get old enough that like when you have a bad dream, your parents aren't going to come anymore, Like there's a time and a place where you can't be like a 17-year-old crawling in bed with your mom and dad, At some point there is a line that we, we don't do these things anymore. We stand on our own 2 feet. So this may be a week for some of us where we are more independent in our work, where we are ready to take the training wheels off and do something on our own that we hadn't before. And it might just be like a natural part of the progression of our lives. But the big thing to know about Saturn and Pisces this week is that we can't rush things, even though sometimes when eclipses come, we do get that bit of like inspiration, or we start feeling like we really want to. So that being said, this aspect will be present all week of doing things that are hard, making sacrifices, accepting that the long-term path to a goal is going to take some kind of sacrifice. Now, because Mercury is retrograde, we're probably not like running out to start the new thing. We're probably sinking into and settling into an awareness of what is going to take some work. Now, for some people, this will be something really fun, like you're planning a wedding and you realize the place you want to do, like maybe you don't have the budget for that. So you decide to save up for the budget for the thing you want. It can be something exciting. It can be a fun part of life and a part of life that is totally worth the sacrifice. So there's that. But I think that as Saturn and Mars, get closer together until Thursday, or wait, is it Wednesday? Wednesday. We may find that we become more and more aware that like something's got to give. We got to make a change, especially with this Mercury retrograde, which will, let me see on my notes here, what day is this going to happen? On the 11th, okay, this will be an important part of the week. The 11th, Mercury, Sun, cazimi. We're going to talk about that when we get to that point, but it's going to affect our plans and what we need to do moving forward. Okay, so right now we are on today, Saturday, and we have at 9:30 a.m. Let's get to, that was before, but I'm still going to talk about it because it affects our energy of the moment. We had the moon sextiling Jupiter, which means even though maybe during something was more serious this morning, just something more serious, at 9:30, we got this ping of growth expansion possibility. So I think of whatever, if there is a problem that arose last night or this morning for you, or you became more aware of something more somber or something more serious or something more sobering, then this moment here is like a moment where you go, hey, I have an idea. There's a possibility. Maybe there's hope. Moon sextile Jupiter gives us hope if we try, if we try to find solutions. So Saturday is a good day to try to solve problems in your life or to grow within limits. Okay, grow within limits, grow within limits. Because it's not a lottery win. It's like I grew a little bit and a little bit and a little bit. And there might be something in our lives that we're realizing we will do better if we take the perspective of incremental changes rather than the perspective of how can I change this all at once. Okay, so that being said, now we're going to look to Saturday afternoon, which we're going to have, let me get it on the time I want. This is about 3:30 when we have the moon sextile Uranus. So today's a good day for growth, expansion ideas, to be social and have fun. While this afternoon at 3:30, when the moon makes an aspect to Uranus, it's like there's a potential to want to go change everything or to suddenly want to be impulsive about something, this sudden idea. Now, the idea might be fine, but when it's a problem is it's like you have an impulse to go across town and get something, but the place is closed. So just because there's an impulse this afternoon doesn't mean you have to follow it. But this could also be, an impulse of something good. This could be like some kind of growth or possibility especially around something social today. Maybe you run into someone and you have a nice conversation or, something like that. So be open this afternoon for things that are nice because moon is in Pisces, Jupiter, Uranus are in Taurus. So this sextile is feminine. It's receptive. It really, really loves when things are easy. It loves when things feel good. It loves when you can relax and enjoy your life and just take it all in. So it's like taking in a sunrise, taking in a sunset, taking in a beautiful scene or a beautiful movie or beautiful words. This is all possible this afternoon. Now, if you are someone who tends to struggle with Uranus transits, or you get antsy and you want to go do something and you are the kind of person like me who it's like if there's a real strong Uranus transit, I just want to jump out of my whole life and ruin everything. I've learned not to do this. I've learned after many, many years why this is not the best idea. So if you're like that, then this afternoon, watch out for that. watch out for some sudden impulse to go off and like start a new business on something you don't know anything about, or something else that you know, that independence of Uranus infused into the moon is like wanting to get away from a situation, wanting to get away from an emotional situation and get some space. Now, you might be able to just get some space, but watch out if that impulse is super strong. I would say, you know, wait till the next day. And I will say, because Sunday, the moon will move into Aries. So that means that impulse, that Uranian impulse, will be gone by then, and then see how you feel. Okay, moving on now to Sunday. Sunday's kind of a fun day because we have the moon will hit Venus, and I'll go to the time for that. Maybe, if I can do it. We got about 9:30 a.m., 9:30. The moon will hit Venus in Aries. So Sunday morning, you might just want an adventure. You know, when I think of Venus in Aries, I think of the thrill of the chase. I think of like fast cars. I think of like things that are like this adventure, this rush. You know, Aries is masculine. It is impulsive. Now, I don't think impulsive isn't the right word I wanted to use. What I wanted to say was Aries is instinctual. Okay, Aries is instinctual. So it's like being able to express yourself in the moment right now and live out that instinct on Sunday morning. So this could be like a fun day with a partner. It could be a good day to like go for a little adventure, go to a new store you haven't gone to, whatever you do for fun, get out in nature, whatever. It feels like that moon Venus is going to want adventure. It's possible some kind of conflict can come up for some people with this, but it's almost like there still feels like there's, if a conflict comes up, it's you're getting to the bottom of something with the Pluto moon sextile. But I mean, just moon Venus, I like this. It's like meeting a new lover and they just kiss you and you didn't even expect it. You know, it's like that energy. Now, keep in mind that won't be what happens in everyone's physical life, but that metaphor of just like an unexpected kiss, an unexpected ride on a motorcycle, you know, just something you didn't see coming, that's like, or that something that you created out of nowhere just because it was fun. Okay, so that being said, I do like that energy of Sunday morning. The whole day, though, we're finding the sun gets closer and closer and closer to Chiron, which it's going to conjunct on Monday, coming into the eclipse. So Sunday, I would say, you know, this is a good day to just chill, enjoy life, do things that are fun, go with your instincts, to a degree, of course. But we're going to move it now to the day of the eclipse, which is Monday, April 8th. So I will talk about just in general what these energies mean, but I also want to encourage you to go ahead and watch my full video on this eclipse, because it breaks down the eclipse energy for every sign of the zodiac, and you can watch it for your sun, your moon, and your rising. But that being said, we're looking at it. Let me see. I don't remember what time this is happening, but here we go. This is close enough. Yeah, around 11:30. I think it's a little bit before that, but we're close enough on the chart here. So what we have for this eclipse, we have the sun at 19 degrees of Aries. We have Chiron at 19 degrees of Aries. The sun and moon are always going to be conjunct. Mercury being nearby is really common because Mercury is always, can only be one sign away from the sun. So Mercury being there, even Venus being in the same sign, these are not uncommon things. But what makes it a total eclipse is it's so close to that north node. What makes an eclipse is the sun and moon have a new moon near one of the nodes, the north node or the south node. So this is a solar eclipse because the sun and the moon are conjunct. It is a north node eclipse because the sun is in the same sign or near the north node. Both of them signify moving forward and kind of what we're moving toward, which gives this eclipse a lot of masculine energy. But what do we see here with it? Chiron. So Chiron is our wounded healer archetype. Okay, Chiron was abandoned by his mom when he was a baby because he was ugly and she didn't like the way he looked. And he ended up studying with Apollo and becoming a healer. And then he didn't get wounded again until later, where he got shot with an arrow and he was immortal and couldn't die. So the wound was that he couldn't die, which is what I'm being dramatic here. This is what we feel when we're really getting in touch with our Chiron wound, is like, God, I wish I could just die. You know, it's like, and I'm not being serious, but it's like, I'd rather die than feel this way. I'd rather die than feel this way. And Chiron in Aries is our collective wound because we all have Chiron in a different place. Okay, we all have Chiron in a sign in a house, and it's different for everyone. Chiron is in Aries now. That doesn't mean you have Chiron in Aries. Your Chiron could be anywhere else. But the Chiron in Aries collective wound is feeling like we're not capable, feeling like we can't do things. How do you know you're in your Chiron in Aries wound? Well, because you act too much like Libra in negative ways, letting other people go first. Feeling like someone else is more qualified, afraid to make someone angry even if they don't care, wanting to please everyone, waiting for someone else to decide and then fitting what you have to do in with it afterwards. So the question to ask yourself this week, and especially Monday, is, where am I not claiming and going after what I want in life? Where am I not claiming and going after what I want in life? Because I'm holding myself back. I'm afraid I can't do it. Because I'm afraid I'll get in trouble. I'm afraid that I can't and that I don't want to see the results of that. I don't want to see that I'm going to fail. I'm afraid to get close to people, blah, 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 blah. Now, if you want to go even deeper on this, I actually did a video that was about the Chiron North Node conjunction back in February. This video will still help you understand what this energy looks like in your life, because I broke it down by sign of the zodiac and I did one for each sign. So like, I have Virgo rising. Chiron is in my 8th house of intimacy and debt and taxes. So, you know, that's for me, but for you, it's going to be somewhere else. So it'll tell you that too. But overall, our next task in life is going to be painful. Our next task in life is going to be us really having to overcome a pain point in order to continue on. And sometimes, you know, because we're dealing with the fear of not being capable, sometimes what we have to do is do the thing and see if we fail or we don't in order to know the answer. And that's the hard thing about the wound, that I'm not capable or I can't do it. The only thing you can do to find that out is try and put everything on the table and see, and then you know if you could do it or not. And being happy enough to know that you tried, getting to a place where you are strong enough that you can accept that maybe I did try and fail, but that is better than sitting here holding myself back all my life. Because the world really needs us to be out there living. The world really needs us to be doing what we're good at. The world really, really needs people right now who are there for other people and helping others in some kind of way and making the world better. We can't just sit and wait for this to pass. And I think this eclipse is really going to activate that for a lot of us. So it really is about taking our next steps, courageously taking our next steps. And I'm not saying do this on Monday, but maybe on Monday we might get some clarity on what this is for us. And with Mercury retrograde, it doesn't feel like the time to do the thing. Monday feels like just, you know, sometimes during eclipses, the best thing to do is just let it pass and see what happens, see what awareness you have, see what changes. And then I would say, I think we're going to also get more clarity on Thursday, and I'll tell you why once we get to Thursday. But overall, Monday, it's the total eclipse. We are in eclipse energy. Chiron's here. There might be some wounds of feeling like, oh man, I can't do that. And that just might be a feeling that we have that day. But it may also be this ongoing story we have of seeing more clearly where we're telling this story that we can't do things, where we are going through some kind of pain that we wish we could just die instead of feel, that's like, it's the worst thing I want to do. But part of healing the Chiron wound is seeing the reason to go through the wound. And sometimes to see the reason to go through the wound, you have to see what that wound is stopping you from. So on Monday and all week, I would say if you start to have any kind of feeling of like, I can't do that, but this other person can, or you feel jealous, or you see anyone who kind of like really gets under your skin because they have something you don't have, or they're doing something in life you're not doing. This would be like me seeing some huge YouTuber who has all the followers and feeling all sad because I'm not there or something, right? So whatever that, apply that to what makes sense for you in your life based on a goal you're trying to reach or something you wanted to do but haven't done. There might be something that sort of really just hits that nerve. And if something does hit that nerve this week, this is not a week to go, well, I'm going to go not think about this and meditate. The sun illuminates the wound. And again, we have to see what that wound is stopping us from. So when you see that person who's further than you, or you get that glimpse of what this pain point is, of like, oh, this always happens for other people, but not for me. The way to alchemize that, if that is what's happening for you this week, is to say, okay, well, that's what could be if I went through this wound. That's what's possible for me. Instead of seeing it as, oh, my life sucks, this never happens for me, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So, and again, if you really, really relate to what I'm talking about, I recommend watching that video on the Chiron North Node conjunction I did back for like mid-February of 2024. So let's go on now to, that was Monday. Now we're going to look at Monday evening about what time? About 7:30 p.m. This is still the day of the eclipse, but it's later in the day, and the moon is going to be hitting this Mercury retrograde. So in order to understand what's happening here, we have to know what was being reworked in your life back on the 18th. Or what was the day it went retrograde? It went retrograde, I think, on, and now I can't remember, the 1st. That's right, April Fools. So then, did you get something back on April 1st? Did you get some kind of communication that something has to be redone? There might be something related to this happening on Monday evening. Either way, it's a good time to be aware of a possible plan change that you probably won't get to the bottom of until Thursday. And I will tell you why when we get to Thursday. Let's go to Wednesday. On Wednesday, we have Mars conjunct Saturn. So let's get to Wednesday. I'm going to move it to earlier so we got the planets at the top here. Okay, so Mars actually, no, I'm not. I have to use this shit right. Okay, here we go. I want to still make it earlier, even though, yeah, we'll do 1 hour. Yeah, there we go. We're really close to the exact conjunction here, 14 degrees and 40 minutes of Pisces. That's going to be 1:30 p.m. on Wednesday. I do not think most of us are going to have some crazy stoppage on at this time, but in the world we might see some kind of blockages, or like a ship getting stuck, or something with our transportation getting stuck. something big, not able to move, like a semi truck getting stuck on a mountain or something. Or, there's a bunch of other possibilities, but big things getting stuck are the keywords here. Now, in our lives, remember, this is a new cycle of Mars and Saturn. So it'll be the beginning of a 2-year cycle for us related to Mars stuff and Saturn stuff. Mars stuff is what we desire, what we'll fight for, our anger, our boundaries. Boundaries are a big deal with this. Saturn is our discipline. So Mars stimulates our discipline, meaning we become more disciplined. Now that can be because we want to or because we have to, right? It's like going on a diet, or, like you could be initiating that, or your doctor could say, you're going to die if you don't stop eating this, right? It can go either way. Or, beginning something new related to these planets together, which would be like learning self-defense. Or if the word defense is a keyword for anything in your life, like maybe let's say you work with computers. This could be learning how to defend yourself from a cyber attack or something. Or learning how to have the right firewall, stuff like that. And what we can expect again is like, we want to go fast, but we have to go slow. This is not a day to wake up late and try to zip through traffic. And that's kind of the energy of Mars-Saturn. I said this in another video about Mars-Saturn as a natal aspect, and I have a video on this. If this is a topic you like, you can just find that video. I think it's on Mars square Saturn, but it has a lot of the keywords and stuff. But basically, it's you want to go, but you have to stop. Mars is like a Ferrari, Saturn is like a semi-truck. Mars gets stuck behind the semi and can't go around. So we may have this metaphor in our life at some way today, but Mars-Saturn isn't always bad because it creates this fortitude, this unbreakableness, this strength, and it does have positive aspects to it. Even though this is the two bad guys together, there is still something about when Mars is with Saturn, there's an unbreakable will and you become unstoppable. But you become unstoppable because people try to stop you and you keep going. So it's like you could feel metaphorically held down or stuck on this day. And just, if that's the feeling, just know the energy will pass. And the way you work with a Mars-Saturn is, it's like when you submit paperwork to the government, you do that shit right the first time. And if you don't, you're going to get punished, You're going to have to redo it and wait 3 more months for them to process it because they take forever or whatever. So whatever you're doing, if you're doing something serious on Wednesday, try to do it right the first time because it just feels like things might get stuck. The keywords of getting stuck are really high. Now, keep in mind that this is going to depend on what house this is in for you. Does it aspect your natal planets? For some people, this may be a more passing thing. For others, it might be more like, oh, this is really a big deal right now. So keep that in mind always. Now, on this day as well, this is going to be the 10th. We have the moon. I thought that was in my, that was in my notes. Earlier this day, we're going to have the moon and Jupiter together. So that's going to be around 11:30 a.m. So again, the moon Jupiter is going to be more about finding possibilities. So even though things get stuck or things are going slow, I think of the metaphor here of like reading the Bible in jail. That's what I put on my notes for moon Jupiter during a Mars-Saturn conjunction, is that when you're in jail, you can still read the freaking Bible, right? I did this when I was a kid and I was in juvie. I totally read the Bible. But it's like, you might not be in jail. Most of you are not going to be in jail on Wednesday. But think of that metaphor of like having to have some patience, but that you can find something else to do that's good with this. If you're not able to do something, or an area of your life gets more serious, or you can't book the venue you need to book that day, there's something else you can do that can promote growth or happiness or connection with people that can be used for good. So just use that slowness for good is what I would say. There's that potential. So then at 11:30, the moon hits Uranus. That's PM. No. Sorry, 3:30. 3:30 p.m. and I'm just going to try to move it to that time. The moon will hit Uranus, and I'm in Pacific time, which means, again, if you have that tendency to be more on the, what's the word, impulsive side, if you feel urgency sometimes, if not being able to go makes you more nervous, this would be a time to really kind of sit with that energy and know not to go just like do something crazy. For some people, this will be a nice spark of an idea, especially related to comfort or making your life more security. But if you tend to get like worried about money, this could be a moment where you just worry about financial insecurity for a minute. And if that's the case, I don't usually recommend taking action right away during a Uranus transit. Maybe, but on this one, it doesn't feel like that's what we're trying to do. It just feels like we might get some spark of an idea for a solution, but we probably can't implement it yet. It's like if you're the Ferrari and you're stuck behind the semi, you might realize a new route you can go once you get unstuck, but you still might have to wait, and you might just turn on your favorite song, and that might be the best you can do, or your favorite podcast, and just get something out of the moment anyway. So remember, these are just metaphors. Apply them to your life how they fit. Now we're going to go to Thursday the 11th. Now this is a good, important day. Not good, just important. The important thing happening today is we have this Mercury Sun cazimi. These happen quite frequently. I always recommend for people who want to study astrology that you look at the cazimis and what is happening in your life on that day, because you will learn things about astrology this way. There's usually a very clear thing, and it's not always you. Sometimes it's someone else in your life. What we can do with this cazimi moment is powerful, because we need to think about when the planet hits the sun. This is a moment of clarity. Because metaphorically, what happens? Mercury goes up to the sky, gets burned off by the sun, and purified. That's the metaphor. What that means in reality is you realize something, and it might be something painful. You see something, you face something, someone has to deal with something. It's a moment where it's a moment of clarity. Okay, so clarity on what? Well, you have to consider what houses does Mercury rule in your chart. It's going to be clarity on something related to that. And you can think of both, because it's going to rule your Gemini house and your Virgo house. So like this chart right here, this person would be a Virgo rising, and Mercury rules their 10th house. So they would consider their life and their job, as far as those are the things that the sun's going to purify. If it's your second house, it's your money. If it's your 7th house, it's your relationships, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so the sun, Mercury, we have to think about what was happening, first of all, when Mercury went into shadow. That was the 18th of March. So what was happening on the 18th of March, 2024, with the areas of life Mercury rules for you, right? So whatever that is for you. What was changing, reassessing, or unclear? Then, what happened on April 1st? What information did you get that was different, that had to be redone? What project had to go back and go through and redo the numbers? What thing had to go be re-looked at, right? So if Mercury rules your second house, what happened with your budget and your spending that day? This is a day that we get the realization of the problem. We realize what's at the heart of the matter. And because the moon makes a sextile to Pluto that day earlier, right? So let me see, I wrote the time on that, didn't I? 6 a.m. About 6 a.m., 7, 8, 9, 10 a.m., the moon sextiles Pluto. there is something that you get to the bottom of or is revealed on the 11th that might be good, might be bad. It might be hard, it might be easy. It might be significant, it might be just a regular everyday thing. But pay attention to whatever that is, because that is what you'll be able to move forward with, that information or that insight, when Mercury goes direct later in a couple weeks. Okay, so I think this might be a day, it really is a day of like getting curious and exploring how we're going to revise our plans so they work going forward. Getting curious about what the problem is, or what really needs to be solved, or what really needs to be done to change or improve or fix something, or just take the next steps of our lives moving forward. So I do think there's a lot of good possibility of information we could get on this day, although I think some of it might be news we don't want. You know, it's like, I'll just imagine, and whenever I imagine, it's like something related to my life, but bear with me here. Let's say I get an audit of my YouTube channel and I have somebody, come through and tell me everything I'm doing right and everything I'm doing wrong. This would be the day I get the audit back and it has 20 million things I need to fix. And it's like, everything you're doing is wrong. So I'm not saying it has to be that extreme, but this is like if you wrote a book, this is when you get the book back with all the edits and you're like, it can be overwhelming, but now you know what needs to be done. Now you know what the problem is. It's all above the surface now. For those who maybe aren't working on a project where that would make sense, this could also be just a day where you realize stuff. You realize stuff about the people in your life, you realize stuff about your relationships, and you have more information. Okay, so we're going to go on now to Friday. That was Thursday. This is Friday. Friday, okay, so we'll start at 7 a.m. These are in Pacific time, by the way. At 7 a.m., the moon squares Mars. It squares Saturn, and then it'll square Mars. So it's squaring this Mars-Saturn conjunction. So what does it feel like to have a Pisces-Gemini square? Well, Gemini wants to tell everyone everything. Pisces wants to take in everything, and you can't do both at the same time. You cannot be listening to the lessons of the universe and telling everyone something at the same time. You cannot talk and listen at the same time. So we feel like telling people stuff, but we have to learn stuff instead. And it feels like, it's almost like, imagine you walk into work and you want to tell everyone about the crazy story that happened. You had crazy weather, and then you get to work and instead your boss has some problems they want to talk to you about. You have to do what the boss wants, right? So it has that metaphor on Friday morning of wanting to go do something, wanting to say something, wanting to put our point across, but maybe we don't have the words, or we're not able to, or we need to go learn more and receive more. It's like this tension between our desire to be more instinctual and our need to kind of sit back and take everything in and just receive and go with the flow and kind of buckle down and do what needs to be done. We'll probably need to adjust to something here related to this Mars-Saturn conjunction, because even though it happens on Wednesday, on Friday the moon squares it. So it's like, this is where we're really feeling this energy. And then after this, the moon in Gemini is going to sextile all these planets in Aries. It's going to sextile, it already sextile Venus, but it'll sextile North Node, Chiron, Mercury, and the Sun. So it's like Aries is instinctual, Gemini is curious. So this is a day, Friday, to really, I know we all have our own like stuff going on, our own sort of obligations, and some people work and stuff. But overall, aside from that kind of stuff, this is a day to really explore. So we might be exploring or just getting curious, and that Aries instinct will come up, and that Gemini tendency to just say the first thing that comes to mind will also come up. but we want to watch out. We are not putting our foot in our mouth. We're not speaking when we're supposed to be listening. Overall though, I feel like this is a lighter day of all the days this week is Friday, even with some of the heaviness we have going on with that Mars and Saturn. So I do think it could be the kind of day where you just go up to a total stranger and have a conversation and don't have a plan for where it's going to go. Also, the last thing I want to say about Friday here is that Jupiter Uranus, we haven't really talked about this, but this is a very, very big aspect happening in the sky, which is Jupiter and Uranus will be conjunct. Now, if we go to a little bit later on Friday, hold on. We see, I think it's Friday. Yeah. See, by Friday evening, Jupiter is 1 degree away from Uranus at this conjunction that will be at 21 degrees of Taurus. So if you have planets at, let's say 15 to 26 degrees of Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, or Aquarius, you might really be feeling this conjunction. And that's going to be, it'll be different for everyone. But if you struggle with Uranus, it'll be a tension and a feeling like you need to jump out and do something crazy right now and impulsively go buy something or impulsively go do something about something. So you may need to sit back and go, do I really need to? And for others, it'll be something sudden that's more growth promoting, right? So you may have to think about if you have a sudden impulse to do something, the consequences, right? Because the possible negative with Uranus Jupiter is like buying something you can't afford or things like that. So I think that's it. Now I will be doing a separate video on Jupiter Uranus. It's going to be exact on the 20th of April, and I will be doing it through each sign of the zodiac. So watch the channel for that. It's a good one to know how it's going to affect us. It's going to be significant. It's a big deal. Jupiter, Uranus are big deal transits. And we're probably going to feel it in the world too. So that's what we have. This week is a lot of, I want to say, heavier energy. And I mean, it's just like that sometimes. I feel like the overall vibe of April, the first couple weeks are a little rougher, and the second couple weeks are a little bit less rough as that Mars-Saturn conjunction sort of, it's not going to disappear, but it'll slowly fade. So it's like as the month goes by, we're going to have more and more speed. We're probably going to feel less and less heavy. And I do think that we're going to get some energy coming along toward mid or end of April that is more stimulating for us. You know, by the last week of April, Mercury will be out of retrograde. And then by May, we're looking at now Mars is in Aries. And so a little bit less of that strong Pisces influence for anyone who has felt like this Aries season wasn't really that new beginning-y. I don't know if it was just me, but it felt more sluggish and slow and like I just couldn't get moving. So if that's you, I think that Mars going into Aries will help us sort of feel the momentum, feel the movement, and then Jupiter, Uranus, you know, things are going to kick off. Things will be moving a little bit faster by the end of the month and then even into May when we have some of this energy lightens up a little bit. So I'm going to check out the comments now and see what you guys are saying. PB, you're welcome. Hello. Hello, misbehaving. Dahlia hates this. Yeah. Yeah, at least it's hitting your part of fortune and not like something horrible. Looking at spirituality saying, let's see, I'm a sun Sag, moon Aqua, rising Aqua. Natal has Chiron in my first. North Node in Aries, South Node Libra. My Saturn is in Aries at 19 degrees. Okay, that's a big deal because that's the degree of the eclipse. Should I be worried, happy, concerned? Maybe I'll do a video, you guys, on like what to do, how to actually look up a transit and see how it's going to affect you, because this is a problem with astrology. I have this problem sometimes too, where I don't know how a transit's going to affect me. And I'm like, should I be worried? I know I have some transits right now that I should be worried about because they are harsh and they're all happening at the same time. But here's the thing, because it's on your Saturn, not something else. You know what? I was going to say that, but then I'm like, no, with the Aquarius rising, that makes it more like this is you. The eclipse is happening to you in your second house. This could actually be okay because it's like more money. Do you want more money? Are you trying to go after more money? Are you getting a new job? Because the eclipse is a solar eclipse and it's a north node, it's like you're going for that thing. So, I mean, that might actually be a good one. I can't guarantee that. Even in a private reading, I still can't guarantee that something bad won't sometimes happen. There's stuff in my own chart I've missed. I don't specialize in predictive astrology. But if you are concerned, one of the things that I've done that's helped me is consider what's the best case scenario and consider what's the worst case scenario and try to work with it. So, I don't want to get too into that because I don't want to scare you or someone else for something that doesn't happen, but work with it as if there could be a best while also being prepared for the worst. That's all we can do with transits. Okay, yeah. PB says you've been feeling like me, sluggish, waiting for something. Sarah Cumming says, please do. I'm Virgo rising too. Yeah, you want more money. Yeah. Well, and the thing is, there could be some challenges here though, because sometimes Saturn the second means you have to go work with less money or you have to work really hard for it. So with Saturn, it's hard to come up with a potential positive other than hard work. So that would be the best case scenario, is you have to work really hard for money. Worst case scenario, you can't get the job you want, you don't make as much money, something like that. Sag, Sun, and Moon, the apex of I'm guessing you meant Yod, is Chiron. And Jupiter in Cancer, I'm not sure how to interpret it. Yeah. Yods are hard to interpret. Even in a private reading, sometimes I do these, but it's like, it is hard to interpret the yod. Although I will say people who go viral have yods, so that's one possible good part. Thank you. Okay, so PB says waiting to clean and purge and organize, but feel like a tired slug wasting time. Anyone else feeling like that? Feeling like you need to clean, purge, and organize, you want to get things in order, but like the energy to do so is missing. And I'm not saying that we should wait for the energy to be good to do stuff. Sometimes, I come and I do these videos whether the energy is good or not, right? And I know PB, you know that too. But there's a fine line between like understanding how the energy is hitting us and trying to work with it versus using the energy to not do something we should just be doing. Sarah says quicksand. Quicksand, is that how you feel too? Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like this stuff I am doing. It's like I have to kind of force myself, and then it's like, it's not even quite, things just don't feel like they're quite lining up at the moment. But I have to say that the last eclipse was good to me. The lunar eclipse in Libra brought me some good things with my work life that I am so grateful for. And one of the things I think astrology has helped me with probably the most is like being grateful for the small things, even when everything else feels like a fucking train wreck. Like being grateful for the little things in my life that I think as an astrologer, it's like you can see in the chart that like when someone says, oh, this is so bad, you can see in the chart like this could be way more bad if all these other planets were kicking your ass at the same time. It's like externalizing our inner world is so helpful when it comes to the ability to see someone else could have it worse. And that's one of the things I think astrology has helped me with the most is going through the quicksand, knowing like it could be worse. I could be like under the ground, right? Like in any moment, whatever metaphor we're going through, whatever the weather, energetic weather is, it's like it could be so much worse. Thank you so much, PB. I appreciate that. I'm thinking about, I'm not going to make any commitments today, but I am thinking about doing some new content, like maybe some videos on like life purpose, or even getting into the Mercury signs, or just some things that are not just energy reports, even though of course I know we need them and I'm not going to stop doing them. But I'm just feeling like doing that stuff because for those of you who maybe don't know, that's how I started this channel. Was like, actually, technically, I started this channel doing tarot readings and a lot of videos that no longer exist because they were bad. they were, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that. But I have been thinking about my strategy and ways that I can really like just do good videos and make good content. So we'll see what ends up happening. I'm not announcing anything yet. Yes, Sarah, exactly. Not in a lay down and take it kind of way, but more of a flailing around will make it worse. Yeah, this is so good because it's like, this is why I love astrology and I love people who are into astrology, because force will only get you so far in certain situations. And sometimes you do have to kind of go with what you feel. And I think our society in general doesn't fucking get this. And this is why the world is stupid sometimes, because people will just over masculinize everything, right? People will, and I used to be one of these people who would be like, well, if you don't like it, you just work harder. Like I was like that when I was younger. And I was really mean, and I didn't know how mean I was because I was just surrounded by this energy, this emotionally dismissive, overly masculine, overly results oriented, overly materialistic energy of like tough shit, suck it up. And I think tough shit, suck it up helps us sometimes. I think being in, my glasses have so much glare, it's driving me nuts. I think being in that stage in certain situations helps us. Like, let's say you are in quicksand. You might have to just suck it up and get yourself out of the quicksand, right? Sometimes, but sometimes, like Sarah says, in more of a flailing around will make it worse sort of a vibe. So this is so good because only we really can know. And we are always surrounded with these well-meaning people who want to tell us what to do and want us to be like them. I've had so many clients come to me and be like, and I could just tell their soul wanted something. And they're like, but my mom says I should do this. Or, my sister told me to get a job like hers. And it's like, you're not your mom and you're not your sister. So even though they mean well, it's like, the hardest part of life, I think, maybe not the hardest, but one really hard part of life is to know when to say no to that, know when to be influenced by people, and to be yielding, and to listen, and to take the feedback, and know when to say, no, this is what my heart and soul are going to do. Tough shit. Okay, so we have Dora Destroy. Hello, welcome to the live. And then PB says, helping others lead a purpose-driven life is a wonderful thing. It's very confusing, learning about our personal charts and trying to understand what the F we're supposed to learn. Yeah, it is, because sometimes the chart will tell you what is, right? And sometimes the chart doesn't always tell you what to do. And that's one of the things I find that is ultimately we have to kind of decide for ourselves how to work with what we got and whether to go for something or whether to not go for it. And the thing is that we still always have to, the thing is that the answers are going to be inside of us, and that sucks to hear when you're trying to figure it out. And what we want, and what I wanted when I was like reading my first tarot readings and didn't like my life and didn't know what to do about it, I wanted someone to give me a piece of paper that said, this is what you're supposed to do. And on the top, it's like a title, job title. And then I wanted a freaking bullet point list, a checklist. Do this, 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 and this, and this. But this thing does not exist, right? And even if someone did give me that, if someone took the time out of their life to stop everything they were doing and gave me that, it still wouldn't have helped me. Because when it comes to like our purpose, we really have to do what feels right for us. And we have to overcome our fear to the level that, we can do the things that scare us. And we have to also build actual skills in the actual life. So it's not the easiest thing to maneuver, definitely. PB says, paying attention to our gut feeling gets better with practice. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Sarah says, it'd be fun to do sort of speed dating chart reading event to learn. I used to did you ever see any of my lives where I did like 10-minute readings? I used to do these on the channel more often. I have not done them lately, as they are honestly a ton of work for me to do. It's a ton of work to like just get it all the charts in right and to be doing it live. I find it, I've done it a lot, and I loved every reading I got to do. But it is also quite difficult for me. Although, who knows, perhaps I will do something along these lines again at some point. Okay. So let's just recap for a second about this week and eclipse season and kind of what to do, what not to do, some reminders. Reminder number 1, not all eclipses are going to completely destroy your life. I think we tend to get scared because eclipses do mark those very, very faded events that happen that none of us really want to experience, Most of us don't want to lose a loved one. We don't want our relationship to end suddenly, abruptly, out of the blue. We don't want to be cheated on. None of us want things that are bad. So sometimes eclipses will be the astrological marker of things like this happening. And that is a fact. But not all eclipses are going to affect everyone equally. So think about it this way. There is an eclipse or 2 or 3. There's 2 or 3 eclipses every 6 months. And they last until the next eclipse. So based on that, that means that every minute of every day of our lives, we're under the influence of whatever last eclipse happened. And every day and every minute of our lives is not this big upheaval. Every minute of our lives is not some, huge transformational crazy thing. Eclipses aren't always turning our lives upside down. We all do have some of these moments, and in the astrology chart, sometimes you see these by some other things. Sometimes something hitting the vertex will do this. Sometimes something hitting Uranus hitting something will do this. Sometimes something aspecting your natal Uranus will do this. Sometimes you'll have a big new beginning or ending based on the new moon or full moon in your solar return chart. Not solar return, progressed chart. So eclipses, I would say, are the most misunderstood by us because we tend to think that something bad's going to happen, and you could be just fine. So don't do that. Don't worry that something bad's going to happen when you could be just fine. But also, if you see a transit coming up that you're like, oh no, I'm scared, you can book with an astrologer and that might help. But another thing that helps is to figure out, to approach it from a more logical perspective and figure out what's the worst case scenario, what's the best case scenario, and go from there. If the worst case scenario is, and I'm not saying anyone will die, but this is what our minds do, this is what my mind does, is like someone will die. Okay, am I good with that person? This is where having more of a stoic philosophy of like, well, people do die and that person could die. Like, that's a fact. Someone in your life could die at any time. Someone in my life could die. Someone in all of our lives could die at any moment and any time. And that is a fact. And I am not predicting that. I'm just saying these are facts. And when the idea of someone dying in your life terrifies you beyond anything, and you're just like, oh my God, I can't even imagine this, This means that you may have an overactive Jupiter or an underactive Saturn, because when our Saturn is balanced and healthy, we can accept and face death. Now, I am not saying you should be happy if someone close to you passes away. I'm not saying that it's easy. And I know that there are some people who this lesson is much harder than others. So if you are one of those people, my heart goes out to you. My heart goes out to you and is with you. But the rest of us probably don't need to be like freaking out every day thinking, oh my gosh, this person's going to die. What if they die? And it goes back to our own energy within us. So when the idea of a big challenge terrifies the hell out of you, usually this means, again, you either have an underbalanced Saturn, because Saturn's a part of us that can get shit done and is capable, or you have an overactive Jupiter, the part of you that wants everything to be good and always wants to look on the bright side. We all have a Saturn, we all have a Jupiter. We all have planets transiting. Now, you could also be in a season where you're like, if you're in a season where a planet is really negatively affecting your Saturn or your Sun, your will and your self-discipline may be hit by that. So this could also not be a personality trait. This could be a timing thing where Neptune maybe is dissolving your willpower, or Neptune is dissolving your confidence at the moment, or Neptune is dissolving your maybe it's hitting Mars. It's like you just can't be bothered to get off your ass and do anything. And that's a real thing. I have seen this. I've seen this in my life. I've seen this in clients. That does happen sometimes. But even if that is happening and you are getting pummeled by the universe, you can still do things that will strengthen your Saturn or strengthen your Jupiter. So if you're afraid everyone's going to die and you're worried about it, or you get more freaked out, you lose your shit if you have a flat tire and you can't even call the tow truck, then that can be an imbalance within you that can be fixed. But the thing about fixing those imbalances is they require us to do things we don't like to do. When we have a deficiency of a planet, we usually don't want to do that thing because that's the whole idea, right? So like for myself, I don't have the best Venus. I don't have the best Venus. I don't like wearing dresses and shit. And I have been working with the planet Venus for over a year, I think now. Maybe just under a year. And even a few weeks ago, I was like at the store and I stopped to look at the flowers, which I normally don't do. And I realized this is one of the effects of working with Venus, is I'll stop and look at the flowers at the store and notice how beautiful they are. And then immediately I was like, that's so dumb. I don't want to do it. So this is how we can actually have these imbalances within ourselves. And this is what I think is the best use of astrology, is to externalize some of those things and look at them from a more, you can see it in the chart. And it makes it something that we can sort of, it's a different kind of tool for self-awareness. But yeah, if you're terrified of eclipses, the goal isn't to learn every eclipse so that you don't have to be terrified and get the guarantee that things are going to be okay. The goal is to strengthen yourself until you are no longer terrified of an eclipse. And some of that, some of that fear that something bad's going to happen or we're going to lose something, some of that I personally think can be channeled into just living life. Because when you live your life and you love the people you love and you are all in, it doesn't mean that when you lose people it's easy, but you can in and I was there, or I did that thing all the way. Okay, so PB is saying, I'm staying indoors and praying and meditating for the best for all. I'm guessing you mean during the eclipse. Natalie says, thank you for talking about this. Yes. Saturn and Jupiter in a yod, I'm guessing, with my sun exactly, must be my Uranus dissolving all through. Uranus doesn't dissolve. Uranus activates and stimulates. But there can be, you can have some, if Saturn and Jupiter are sextile though, that's really nice. So if Saturn and Jupiter are both the base of the yod, then that would actually be quite nice and for Saturn and Jupiter relationship. Oh, I don't know, heifers. Which planet has position that multiple people stalking, following you with their vehicles? I don't know. I would actually look more for like Pluto aspects for that. Pluto aspects to natal planets. Maybe even in I would look for that in the solar returns too, just to hopefully see if it's temporary. Saturn and Jupiter in, yep. I knew you meant yod. And yes, the base. Yes, the base. Okay, guys. I think we'll stop there. Actually, one more thing about eclipses, since we have the eclipse happening on Monday, and then I promise I will stop talking. And that is that people say not to manifest during an eclipse. So I just want to address this because then other people get really mad about that. And they're like, you're fear-mongering. Not exactly. I said this at the beginning, but I'm going to say it again in case any of you jumped on and don't go back and watch the beginning. And that is, if you are manifesting like just your daily regular visualization, your daily regular journaling, whatever you do on a daily basis to kind of imagine and envision the life you want, and there's no ritual behind it, you're fine. If you are someone who calls on the energy of the new and full moons to help you manifest, like you're going to wait till the full moon or you're waiting till the new moon and then you're going to set your intentions, for example. Eclipses are not good to do that with because they are bad. Eclipses are bad. Eclipses are malefic. The definition of malefic is bad. Why are they bad? Because the sun's light, the sun, especially like in a solar eclipse, the sun, which we rely on consistently for life. The sun is our source energy of our whole freaking solar system. Without the sun, we would not exist, and nothing on earth would exist. So when an object like the moon comes in front of the sun and obscures the light, the sort of definition of this is that the good that is in the world is just not present for a moment. The source of optimism and the positive, life-giving thing that is usually there is suddenly not there for a moment. So during that moment, this is not a good time to call on the energy because it means a loss of light. Okay? It means a loss of light, and it's just, why would you want to bring that into your manifestation? The lack of light, the lack of good, the lack of wholeness, the lack of nourishment, the lack of warmth. You don't want that in your manifestation. You don't want a sudden darkness to be in your life. So don't call on that energy, because if it means darkness, don't call on darkness to manifest. Like, it's not fear-mongering. It's not fear-mongering. It's that when you work, and it only applies, remember, if you are working with the energy and calling on the energy of the sun and the moon during the actual day of the eclipse. I would say maybe the day before, day after. I would not, if I don't do this anymore, but if I were someone who likes to manifest with a full and new moon and like do the affirmations and journal and stuff, I would wait until eclipse season is over and consider doing it with the next one. But I would still even look at the aspects to those and make sure they're good, because when you're calling on the universal energy of the planets, that's when it gets infused into it. And there are some, if we're getting into like magic and stuff, there are some, I don't know enough about magic to say definitively this is what it is, but a lot of different types of magic also, when we're talking about like rituals and stuff, they're going to also consider what's happening in the sky first, because of that reason. So this isn't about being superstitious and making everything into some bad thing. But the fact is, we have bad in the world, therefore astrologers are going to talk about bad in the sky. Because as above, so below, as within, so without. We cannot talk about all that is and everything that astrology represents without cautioning you about the bad days, cautioning you about the bad moments energetically. We would be irresponsible as astrologers if we did that. So that's what I have to say about that. Have a good week anyway. Have a good week anyway. Make the best of this week anyway, and it might be a week where we're not getting as much done, but we can still enjoy what we do have. Whatever you do have, you can still enjoy that at any moment. And I'm going back to that metaphor, I can't remember which day I was talking about, of reading the Bible in jail. That was one of the metaphors that came up during this, weekly delineation. And so maybe you're not in jail. Maybe things are just going slow. Maybe, there's some kind of limitation. Maybe there's some kind of mountain you're not quite ready to climb. And this week might be a week of just breaking out that, King James Version. And I am not religious, really. I'm not preaching any brand of religion when I say that. I'm saying that to remind you that wherever you are, whatever is going on in your life, there is something you can do with that moment and that energy. And so this might be a week to let it be okay that maybe this moment isn't the moment to, send a rocket to outer space. Maybe this moment isn't the moment to try to win the lottery. Maybe this isn't a week of some crazy fast manifestation. This might be a week of the energy moving a little bit slower, getting the car running, whatever that metaphor means in your life. If all you do this week is just get the car running, you might be doing better than a lot of people. So keep that in mind and know that we'll be able to move forward with our plans soon. It's a good week to gather information, to get clarity, and to kind of sit quietly with the energy and let that eclipse pass. And that's my official stance on it. So I hope you guys have a wonderful week. For those of you who want more on the current energy, there's a few videos that I already have up that are probably going to be helpful. The first one is the solar eclipse in Aries video, because that is still going to happen this Monday. So check that video out. You can get caught up by watching the lunar eclipse in Libra video. That happened 2 weeks before, but it's still, if you watch both of them, it can give you a really clear picture, if you watch for your sun, moon, and rising, of what's culminating or releasing in one area and what may begin to take form in another area. So to be prepared for that. And if you really want to dive in even deeper, you can check out the North Node Chiron video I did back in mid-February, because in this eclipse, we have Chiron conjunct the sun. Now, that's a little bit different than North Node Chiron, but it's still going to tell you by sun, moon, and rising what area of life your personal Chiron moon is likely to show up in. So it's definitely worth it to revisit that. Think about what pain point was hitting you in February, and if the eclipse may illuminate more related to that area of life. So that's what I have for you, beautiful souls. You can always book a private reading. There is a link below, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye, guys.